What's up, everybody? I'm still not entirely sure what to make of all this, but I'm rolling with it. This appears to be a discovery made back in 2016 that was well documented and publicized, but then it would appear that there's been a legit suppression of this information since then. And this is a Rosetta Stone level discovery that would link ancient Mediterranean cultures to Mesoamerica, probably prior to Teotihuacan and all the other pyramids and structures that would make it appear that the ancient world all had contact with each other. This is something that us internet researchers have speculated for a decade now, and it looks like somebody found the missing link and then decided, well, we better walk that back some. Before I forget again, I want to give a shout out to Chris Brumbaugh, if I'm saying that right. Been laid up in the hospital for a couple of weeks, so thoughts and prayers to you, brother. I hope you're getting better, and this is something you can dig into when the video's over. Or not, because like I said, it seems like this info's been scrubbed. But hang in there, bro. Sunny days ahead, I hope. So this started off, I stumbled across a documentary with professional narration, horrible videography. I don't know if their batteries were dead by the time they got there, but they were barely even using lights inside. And this was an ancient tomb discovered about 11,000 feet elevation up a mountain down in Panama. A guy went to dig a little cistern and his pick struck a rectangular rock, and he said he could hear a hollow sound back behind it. So he started digging into it, and you can see all the smooth river stones that were stacked up intentionally there, blocking the entrance. He finally made his way inside and found an ancient burial chamber. You can see a couple of urns here, but there were all kinds of gold objects in there, and these don't look like anything else I've ever seen from Mesoamerica. And in the video I first found about this, they just said there was a gold sarcophagus in there. Now, I'm assuming this is a replica because the anthropologist did say that the gold was taken somewhere safe. But this is where things get weird, because he says they were taken somewhere safe, not down to the Fort David Museum, where some of these objects are housed. Also, in the edit that I first watched, they didn't say anything about the Ark of the Covenant. But then I found the original documentary, and in there they say that it was the Ark of the Covenant, or at least something matching its description. And now it's like the museum doesn't even exist. But they did film all this back in 2016 and put out a documentary about it. And once again, I don't think this is supposed to be the original object, because it seems like the anthropologist would have just said, yeah, we took it all down to the Fort David Museum, instead of it's been taken somewhere safe. Yeah, like Smithsonian basement. So that's like this big, huge, crazy claim that seems to have been edited out of the documentary I originally watched. So we'll get back to that, but other discoveries in there are major. These are gold plates, which are way too close to the Book of Mormon story. And what's really crazy is this all lines up with the Book of Mormon, which by all accounts, except for the actual Mormons, Joseph Smith that started that whole thing was a straight up grifter. But there's parts of this that seem to validate what he had said. On these gold plates is embossed ancient Demotic and Hebrew writing. Demotic is a script that was used in Egypt around 5th to 7th century officially. But this script predates Roman era Coptic Egyptian, and it's one of the scripts found on the Rosetta Stone. These were made as a funerary practice to be used in the afterlife and not in this world, because they actually cemented the pages together and said this glue was hard as concrete. As far as the authenticity of all of this goes, it would take somebody with some pretty deep pockets and extensive education to replicate this stuff. And to what gain? To charge people $5 a head down at this little tiny museum? Seems to have been closed since then. This one kind of reminds me of a medieval king with a crown, and some stuff that Anatoly Fomenko covered. I tried to find it real quick, but it's thick work going through his book. But he has a section portraying all of the biblical patriarchs as medieval kings. One of the most unique artifacts, I think, is this one. I mean, just tell me this isn't some type of interdimensional protector here. I'm not sure what all they had going on 2,000 years ago. And with these, I wonder if that is portraying side locks, because this is all about to start tying in with ancient Phoenician culture. Here's where things got weird, is they've dubbed this Tomb 13. And normally that'd be no problem. I'd be able to find all the information out there on this. But other than that top article there from Mormon Dialogue, it's like this never happened. The CNN and Fox articles are from 2024 and of a different place. The documentary is clear that this is Fort David Museum, and apparently it no longer exists either. Yet YouTube videos from 2016 all are reporting this discovery of the Ark in Panama. So apparently the only surviving information on this says that according to archaeologist and linguist Dr. Samuel Aaron Weinstein, who specializes in ancient Egyptian dialects, he mentions in his translations of the parchment of gold skins found on the Cacique tomb. The skins were brought by Phoenicians who wrote a detailed account on the goat skins about their voyages from Phoenicia to their arrival in the land now called Panama. A passenger on board of one of the Phoenician ships was called Malia, and he left with a chest of gold and various gold relics from the region around 600 years before Christ. Malia seems to have been in exile, escaping from the Babylonians with his treasures, which that just happens to be the time of the Babylonian captivity, allegedly. Once Malia arrived in Panama, he set himself up as king over the other passengers. The mummified body in the tomb is Malia, and his corpse was placed in the tomb with the golden chest and other Phoenician artifacts. According to the writings on the goat skins, Malia set sail with the Phoenician, and there were 3 Phoenician ships full of immigrants. The 3 ships left Tyre, the largest and most important city-state of Phoenicia, located on the Mediterranean coast, as well as a nearby island. They picked some people up off the island. Their voyage went through the Mediterranean, passing Carthage, and then from Cadiz, Spain, and from there they set sail across the North Atlantic Ocean until they anchored in Laguna de Chiriquí, Panama. After the 3 Phoenician ships landed in Panama, all the passengers carried Malia's treasure to Vulcan Beru, and there they made a village called Serialva. And I guess that's where the parchment stops. It's just a record of the voyage over the Atlantic. So then all I've got about this box is this description from somebody watching the original documentary.
Yeah, right here. The sarcophagus is a large rectangle wooden box that was covered in gilded gold. The layer of gold varied in thickness, from a heavy sheet for the face and the wings of the 2 cherubs to a thin layer of the very finest gold leaves set over the sarcophagus. The 4 rings at the 4 feet of the sarcophagus are made of bronze covered in gilded gold. When the seal of the lid of the sarcophagus was broken and slowly lifted away from its base, there was a gasp from the archaeologist. What they found underneath was a various ancient parchment scrolls wrapped in a skin of ocelot, Leopardus pardalis, which is a leopard, like a wild cat, that is 100 centimeters big and it roams in the jungles of Panama.
Okay, so first off, I don't think this is the original artifact here. That doesn't look like real gold to me. This is real gold, and it doesn't oxidize or tarnish, which is why it's so valuable. So I think this is just a reproduction. After all, it was Mr. Weinstein from the Hebraic Institute that came over and took over this dig. So we can talk about the antiquities authorities later. But they've got this box in the museum, and then up there in the cave, they've got this box. So they're definitely not leaving a real gold box in an unlocked cave, no matter how far up a mountain it is. Whatever they found, they took back to the homeland for safekeeping in a basement. But apparently it matched up with the description of the Ark of the Covenant. Now, is that what I think it is? No. Why I say that is inside were all of these parchments, and did they say that this is what they were using as the sarcophagus? Pretty small, but I know Mesoamericans did burials with the knees up in a sitting position. But anyway, if it were the Ark of the Covenant, then you should find the 2 tablets of the 10 Commandments inside, I think Aaron's rod, and a golden bowl of manna, I believe. But they found all of these parchments. Those were goat skins that recorded the whole voyage, and then it was all wrapped in a local leopard skin. And now let's think about that for a minute. If 3 ships full of people came over from the Mediterranean, well, just like any other voyager that has come over the ocean in the history, they end up intermingling with the locals. And if this is anywhere close to correct dating, then this is possibly before Teotihuacan was even built. Teotihuacan is so old that the Mayans didn't know who built it. And you had the Mayans, then the Toltecs, and then the Aztecs, and then the Spanish. But, you know, if you figure about 400 years for an empire to rise and fall, that's about 1,600 years. Now, looking at the writings on some of the parchment, they found the name Jeremiah. And allegedly, Jeremiah said, I gave Malchiah the Ark of the Covenant. According to 2 Maccabees, it was also in the same document that the prophet, having received an oracle, that's receiving one of those messages, the psychic link I was just talking about the other day, but he was beamed the message that the tent and the ark should follow with him, and that he went out to the mountain where Moses had gone up and had seen the inheritance of God. Jeremiah came and found a cave dwelling, and he brought there the tent and the ark and the altar of incense. Then he sealed up the entrance. Some of those who followed him came up intending to mark the way, but they could not find it. Yeah, they want to know where that gold box is hidden. But when Jeremiah learned of it, he rebuked them and declared, the place shall remain unknown until God gathers his people together again and shows his mercy. Then the Lord will disclose these things, and the glory of the Lord and the cloud will appear, as it did for Moses and Solomon. So it says it's taken to a cave near where Moses was buried, and it specifically says at one point that nobody knows exactly where he's buried. And then that's definitely in sight of the promised land. He was taken up there and shown all of it and said, nope, you're not going in, you're dead. So this could have just been a cover story, and he gave it to Malchiah to flee with. Allegedly, according to this document, that's what happened. This guy says he's absolutely sure that he knows where the contents of the ark are. What's even crazier is you've got these gold plates, and they describe, I don't know which one's which between the parchment and the gold plates, but they say there's Phoenician and Demotic writing. Well, Joseph Smith, who wrote the Book of Mormon and started that whole religion, claims to have found these gold plates with an altered Egyptian script on there. And he claims that ancient Phoenicians from the Bible, like Lehi, arrived here 2,500 years ago. Now, it's generally accepted that he was a grifter. I want to do a video on the whole Mormon scene sometimes. It's insane. They had a larger standing army than the U.S. government did at that time. But part of the claim here is gold plates with ancient Egyptian writing, people arriving here 2,500 years ago. He's talking about this back in the 1800s, and then in 2016, they discover this cave that has gold plates with Egyptian writing and is supposedly from 2,500 years ago. So that's quite the coincidence there. Then also, over in the Holy Land, they've discovered this underground complex. I'm going to have to do a video about this. They say that it can sustain 30,000 people, and this thing was just completely mud flooded. It's a underground complex that was completely full of dirt and rocks. That doesn't just blow in there. This is the columbarium, I think they call it. It's those triangles are pigeonholes. But this place could house up to 30,000 people, and they said that they just left for no reason. Which, if it had mud flooded with everybody in there, then you'd find those remains, but they didn't. They said everybody just left. And that the name of this place was Beit Lehi, the house of Lehi, which is who the Mormons say came over to the Americas. But they said that they were up in the United States, which, descendants could have easily migrated that way. They're going to be mixing in with the locals. But everything about Joseph Smith is shady. But look, at the very least, we've got gold plates with Egyptian writing. And I almost wish the Ark part wasn't even tied into this, because this by itself is huge. And it's not a fantastical claim like finding the Ark of the Covenant. But if this tomb is in fact thousands of years old, then that means there was definitely contact and influence coming over from Europe, North Africa. And that cultures that were separated by a big, huge ocean didn't independently come up with the idea of making all of these big, huge pyramids for no reason. These were either influenced by something somebody saw or by some kind of spirit, which has got me back thinking about the Aztecs and their ark. And whatever's going on here seems to have been erased from the internet. This Fort David Museum evidently never existed. And you got to figure in that the IAA took over this project, which are probably good friends with the people at the Smithsonian. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. Chris, that gives you a little something to dig into. Hope you get to feeling better, bud. And I'll catch you guys on the next one. Static out.